I'm Rebecca of Pocketful of Poseys. Today's costume is one I'm really excited about. It is my first of 2 costumes I am making for the Historical Halloween 2020 challenge. Now this challenge was put together by Lady Rebecca Fashions and Kirilee Cosplay, and I will link their channels down below. So you can check out the Historical Halloween 2020 playlist as well as check out their channels. The idea of Historical Halloween is to recreate a costume from the Weldon's costume pattern catalog. And the Weldon's company made catalogs of costumes and patterns that you could purchase from in the like mid to late 1800s, probably the late 1800s through maybe the mid 20th century. I'm not sure the exact dates. If I find them, I will put them on the screen. So those of us who are taking part in this challenge are not all following costumes from the Weldon company, but just fun and whimsical historical costumes from days gone by. So I chose Spring's Lemon Cheese. The Weldon's catalogs have sections of costumes that are basically just like walking advertisements for things that you use every day or things in your home. So I first saw this lemon cheese costume and I was very intrigued. I was like, what is lemon cheese? Why would you dress as it for Halloween? So I did some research and I found that the Springs company made jams and jellies and orange cream and lemon cheese and a whole bunch of other things. And so I deduced that lemon cheese is most likely lemon curd. And so I love lemon curd. So I figured, let's make a costume. So that's what I did, and I'm so excited to share my process with you. And let's get going on this costume. Here we go. When I was thinking about how to construct this costume and what pattern to use, I decided to use my Truly Victorian corset cover pattern as a starting point. And also wear my corset instead of my stays, since the silhouette in the illustration looked more curvy than conical. I cut out the lining from poly satin and the outer fabric from some home decor fabric. I looked for fabric with lemons, but I didn't find any that I liked. Since I had made this pattern before, I didn't bother doing a mock-up. I pinned the lining together first. I sewed all of the seams for the lining. Next, I pinned the outer fabric together. I used all of the length I had and extended all of the pieces to create the polonaise. I took it to the machine and sewed all of those seams. Then I trimmed the seam allowances with pinking shears. I then sewed the lining to the neckline, right sides together, and the center front, leaving the bottom free. I clipped the corners, trimmed the seam allowance, and turned it right side out. My next step was pinning the lining to the armholes. I then turned the lining edge on the bottom to the inside between the layers and pinned it down. I used a whip stitch to sew it in place. I top stitched around the neckline and center front to keep the lining from poking out. Then I basted the lining to the armholes. Loki came in to get some love. For the sleeves, I used some embroidered organza and the pattern piece for the sleeve of the corset cover as a starting point. I trimmed around the embroidery on the bottom of the sleeves. Hercules helped. Then I sewed the sleeve seams. I tried it out, and then I zigzagged the raw edges. Next, I pinned the sleeves into the arm sides. I had cut out the sleeves strangely since I was just kind of eyeballing it and making it up. So I thought about what I wanted to do, or if anything, to fix that. I gathered the sleeve head to fit and pinned it in place. To the machine! I sewed the sleeves in. Then I changed that little tail on the sleeve seams by sewing a straighter seam. I trimmed that and re-zigzagged the raw edge. I added lace trim around the neckline. Then I sewed it on. I started on the petticoat. I decided to make an 18th century style petticoat so that I can use it for other projects later. My fabric is a pale green silk shantung. I had 2 yards of 56-inch width. I used the entire width and cut it in half lengthwise. I went with white twill tape for my waistband and ties. I put pins at the center and where I wanted the ties to start, using half of my waist measurement for each piece. Then I divided each petticoat panel into fourths. I matched my centers up and my waistband stopping points. Then I matched the center of each side. Time to pleat! And I really just eyeballed it. Next, I sewed the twill tape waistband to the pleated silk. I trimmed it and turned the twill tape over the raw edge and pinned it in place. I decided to zigzag the bottom of the petticoat before hemming since it was fraying a lot. Then I sewed up the side seams, leaving 8 inches open at the top. I used the selvage, so no need to finish any raw edges. Then I whip stitched the waistband down on the inside. Okay, So it's all put together. The only thing left to do is put on the closures and then figure out how I want to do the pollinizing, bustly thing. I did most of the construction of this in one afternoon, or one morning, I guess, because it was before work. So I want to make sure it's not pulling weird here. And this might be a little low cut to wear to work. A lot low cut to wear to work. So I'm going to have to do something else. I am planning on doing a tucker. So that will help. And I think the fit on that is pretty good. And I think I probably will wear my chemise and corset cover, even though they're Victorian. I mean, this is a fancy dress costume from the 30s, I think. So style-wise, it could be anything. So I chose to use the corset cover pattern mostly because I liked the way it fit. And so I think it will work out. I think it will work out just fine. Pattern matching is pretty good here. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Excellent. That's completely by accident. So fit all the way around. It's not going to fall off my shoulders. Sleeves are, I think sleeves are fine. I think they'll be fine. I think the silhouette is nice. Once I gather up, this fabric is kind of heavy. Once I gather up the polonaise things, and I think it's gonna look good. I zigzagged all of the raw edges of the overdress. Then I turned the edges under, pinned, and sewed. I gathered the bottom edges in sections around the entire bottom of the overdress. I didn't film it because I was on the floor under the dress form, but I pulled the bottom edges up and sewed them to the bodice lining in different places to create that kind of polonaise, bustly effect. I added hooks and bars for closures. I ran out of hook and eye tape and just went with what I had. But bows. Unfortunately, one got caught on something and ripped off right before pictures, so I took the other side one off and just left the center one. I will reattach them later. Hercules wanted to help him, but he has no thumbs, so the task fell to me. Time to accessorize! I had this hat sitting around, so I trimmed it with a green ribbon. Next, I made the lemon-shaped apron from some yellow twill. I enlarged the shape and cut it out doubled. I used a marker to add the name of the costume. Then I sewed around the edges, leaving an opening to turn it right side out. I sewed twill tape to the lemon apron for ties. And then it was finished! Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. Stay tuned for my next costume in the historical Halloween challenge, and that will be ragtime. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and you'd like to, please do that. And if you'd like to support the channel further, I have a Ko-fi account which is linked down below. Thanks again, and I will see you next week on our next sewing adventure. I'll see you next time. Bye!